Good morning / afternoon. My name's Tim Gresham. I'm from Temple Healthcare, and I'm going to give you a quick rundown of the Noxturnal software. You can either launch Noxturnal from your icon on your desktop or from your quick launch bar. I'm just going to do that. Click on that. It does tell you which version number you're using here, so you can quickly check that on the way through. But it will generally either open in the software. There are two main screens, I guess, from the onset. One is the recording screen and the other one is the library. It will always open up to the last one you left it at, so it'll remember where you were last time you were in the software, and then open up according to that. In the recording screen, you can see this is where you set up an ambulatory recording, or where you run an online recording. So if I click configure recording, it's just going to go out and look for those devices, and then add that to the study and set up for an online recording. If you then plug in, so you can see all the devices that are connected according to the room that you've set up. But you can also add several rooms to this as well. You don't have to just have one computer for one room. You can add several rooms. It's not suggested that you record more than one rooms with one computer. But it just means that you can have all rooms set up on any computer, and you can run any room from any computer. In the ambulatory side of things, if you plug in a device, you'll see the device icon pop up, and then it'll give you an option to configure that device so that you can send it out with a patient. So the other area, obviously, is the library. So we can toggle between the two, whether it's setting up a recording, running a recording, or looking at the library. And this is essentially the database. It's pretty self-explanatory. If you look at the top banner, you click on one of these top banners, it'll order it either by alphabetical order or the opposite of alphabetical order, by date order, or opposite, depending on which one you want. You click them twice, and it'll go from one to the other. Toggle from the highest to the lowest to the highest. You can then right-click on one of these, and you can go to columns, and then add whichever column you want, including the pathway for where the file is kept. And incidentally, anything under the grey line there is actually a custom field, and you could add as many custom fields as you like. There is no limitation to the number of custom fields, and it's very easy to configure which type of custom field you want, how big the field might be, whether it's a radial button or a drop-down list, and we'll show you that a little bit later. So the recording library is actually very, very useful in terms that you can actually create smart lists. The smart lists are a bit like a playlist in iTunes, in that you can take one of these studies, drag it over to a playlist or a smart list, and it doesn't actually take it out of there he is there. It doesn't actually take it out of the main library, but it does add it to a list. So if we go to the list, you can see there that guy is there, and then you can actually, and then that becomes quite easy then to sort everything by, let's say, AHI, and then take your top 50 AHIs and drag them into a smart list as the top 50 AHIs. And then you can, if you like, you could do a regressional analysis on tongue length, and again with the top AHI patients, or any variation of that. So if you're measuring tongue length, let's say, and you wanted to do some research, you could easily do that. And you would do that by taking the library and just exporting it. So sorting the fields the way you want to, displaying only the fields you want, and then export that to a spreadsheet. So let's do that. Let's put that. Give it some long involved name. Probably not. Punctuation is probably not a good thing to have in there. And so that we can find it easily. Hit save. Then find it. And I think it's that one that I just created, because I created one earlier. And then you can do all your statistical analysis on your choice of any column, your choice of any studies, your choice of any sortings. And what I've just showed you there is the result of perhaps 2 weeks hard labour by a master's or PhD student, and I've just showed it to you in a matter of almost literally seconds, I guess. So that's very easy. We can also, we can reorder these as well. We can shift them around. We can, I think I've just showed you everything I need to show you there, so that's good. we can then open a study. Let's do that. So let's have a look at which one of these I've viewed most. Hit it twice, and there's one that I've viewed 135 times. That's because it's one of the examples I used. It's not named, so there's no confidentiality problems there, and I can just then open that up. Incidentally, this is a split night study. It's a full online PSG study with video and everything, so it's quite nice to show people. Let's just get rid of these so that we have essentially a file with nothing on it. This is how it might open up if you hadn't configured anything, but you would obviously configure things, and you'd configure your sheets, and you'd save those sheets so that studies would open up according to the way you want them to look. But this is one just with the front recording results page only. And the recording results page in itself is actually very useful in that it gives you all the patient demographics, it gives you a quick summary of the sleep stages, it gives you a summary of their AHI/ODI, and where they are in according to their severity, and gives you a little traffic light symbol here as to whether to be concerned about them or not. Underneath, it gives you a summary of all of the signals as well. If you mouse over some of these, you can see it's giving you a little bit more information on each of them. I'll try not to be too quick, but you can see there, one example is your apneas, your obstructive apneas, your central apneas, etc., and obstructive hypopneas, central hypopneas, flow limitations, the desaturations, and then you've got a distribution for the pulse rate, and a couple of other bits and pieces. Page down a little bit because this has actually got a CO2 and the distribution for CO2 as well, and I don't think the CO2 machine was working particularly well on this case. I'm sure it wasn't one of the ones that we used because this study actually came from overseas. Then you've got the signal quality as well. We've got a problem here with the signal quality on airflow, which is why we get a red bar from here on. And if we look back up at the flow limitation, we can see, flow limitation stops there. That was probably because this is a split night study, and well, I know it was because this is a split night study, and they took the cannula out at that point, so the cannula is not receiving any signal, and they put a CPAP mask on the patient. But there you go. You've got lots of extra information over this side, lining up with the various channels here and the various trends. You've also got your traffic light symbols as well. And obviously your eye is drawn to anything that looks sort of orange or red, and you'll have a quick look at it. Now, if we wanted to add signals and have a look at the raw data, and then perhaps score the raw data, we can then add a sheet. And remember, I'm only doing this because this is the way you would start out. You only have to set up the software once. So let's add this sheet, Peninsula Respiratory, let's say. And that's just a single lab. And these are all the respiratory signals that they've chosen to display on this sheet. And that's just one we've saved from previously. I can then fit all. So we fit all the signals onto this sheet, and we'll scale everything to make it look pretty. And that's relevant for respiratory signals. Incidentally, the Nox system is very capable of producing a very accurate flow signal from the respiratory bands, and this ties in with an algorithm that they've generated over years and years to continuously calibrate the flow signal from the RIP bands, and it's complicated maths, but they've done very, very well, and it's very validated now. And if you actually just shift one to go over the top of the other one, in fact we could probably just scale it slightly better than that, you can see that one almost disappears behind the other one. They're almost identical signals. And that is carried through for the duration of the study as well. In this study, as I've mentioned, it was a split night study. So let's see if we go, what happens when we go to the end where the cannula was actually removed, and what that looks like. Well, here it is here. There's the cannula being taken out. There's the cannula flatlining. And after things settle down a bit, we can see that we've got a very, very good flow signal and no cannula. Now this, obviously the analogy to draw here is that the cannula's been pulled out for some reason or another. And that can happen. Pediatric studies particularly, the kids don't like the cannula at all. We have a number of labs now where if the kid really objects to the cannula, they don't even worry about it because they get a very good flow signal from the calibrated RIP bands. And you can also, I mean, this is actually, in some ways, this is actually a better flow signal because it's detecting mouth breathing as well. whereas a single nasal cannula is not going to know whether a patient's just opened their mouth and are mouth breathing. But you can see how that just nicely continues that signal all the way along, and it's just beautiful. Whereas from the cannula, it's just a complete flat line there for the rest of the study. So that's the respiratory signals. Incidentally, we can also do whatever we want with these signals. We can go properties, and let's say that's the thoracic band. Well, that is the thoracic band there. We can show the values. We can draw it as a step plot. We change the color, or we can fill the plot as well with the color. And we can change the name of the signal. We can do pretty much anything we want, and we can do that with the various events as well. So there we go. We've just filled the plot on that one, and sometimes you can make them look rather pretty with different colors, but more importantly, it enables you to set these things up exactly the way you want. You can set up the background the way you want in that sort of slightly off-white yellow if you wanted to as well. But if it's displayed in exactly the way you're used to seeing it, then there's far less adjustment that has to happen when you adjust sort of to this software, and you can go ahead and score very quickly. Scoring is very easy. Let's say I think that was a hypopnea. I've just pressed the H button on my keyboard. You can configure the keyboard shortcut scorings very, very easily just by going in here and assigning keys. Scoring the sleep staging is just as easy with the number pad. Basically 1, 2, 3, 4 is REM perhaps, depending on how you do it. But then I can also equally just delete that as well. There is one-touch scoring, so we can then click on the one-touch scoring, score a hypopnea there. If I do the same, I haven't actually even hit a scoring button there. I've just repeated the same thing over again. If I'm doing the same thing on another channel, let's say I'm scoring apneas on that one, so I'll score an apnea there, hypopnea there, hypopnea there. Like I said, I'm still not touching any keyboard buttons. I'm just doing this with the mouse. If I just dab it, it's the same period selected that I did before. Then we can toggle off that and go ahead and delete any of these if you wanted to as well. Just to clean it all up, but I'm just going to leave it for now. So let's have a look. That's the respiratory signals. Let's have a look also at the add a sheet and add the neurology signals as well. Actually, that was the wrong one. I didn't want that one. I wanted the peninsular neuro. There we go. So let's close that one down. And now we've got all the neurology signals from one of the sheet that we produced for this same lab. Okay. So we can see that. We can also scale all and fit all on this as well. You can exclude, so let's say, the EEG from the scale all and fit all, and you can. This one also has a trend graph in the bottom of it as well, so you can see. I think that's oximetry and its position as well. I'm not sure what position it's doing there, but you can add all kinds of things to that trend down the bottom, and to make things just a little bit easier for you to look at. Now, if we wanted to do that classic thing where we're actually running a split screen, that's fine as well. You choose the one you want at the top, and then you drag the other one down to the bottom, and we've just split that screen. Then we can clean this up by turning off the bottom banner, and I think we have to turn off the bottom banner on that one as well, and we can fit all and scale all. We've got neurology signals in the top, and we've got respiratory signals in the bottom. And that's our split screen. We've got one. Let's make sure these are running. That's running on just on 30 seconds. Well, not 30 minutes, 30 seconds. 40 seconds is interesting because you can put 10 seconds on either side. And then this one's running on 5 minutes as well. So there we go. There's your classic 5 minutes. If I just play that study, you can see how they scroll. We can stop the study. We can then add in some top banners as well, some things in the top banners. You can run an impedance view on this. This is one of the few machines where you can run a continuous impedance view without interrupting any of the signals. You can just be sure that impedance stays good all the way through the night. put position activity in there. We can put flow volume loops. Flow volume loops, incidentally, also come from this calibrated drip flow because we've got accurate assessments of flow and volume. Comparatively, we can run flow volume loops. And if you're familiar with respiratory testing, lung function testing, you'll know what flow volume loops look like. This is also the phase angle, so anything in the positive direction is going to be not paradox, it's going to be normal breathing, and if that flips up the other way, we've got paradoxical breathing, which is often quite useful to have a look at. What else can we add in here? Staging history is useful. You can add in spectrograms if you wanted to. Let's put it in the digital clock. People like the digital clock. And the video player, obviously. So then, I know this study's got video on it, so let's play some video. And there we are. Any of these can be undocked, and then expanded, and then redocked, quite simply. And then we'll stop the study. Let me just check with my list and see what else I need to show you. So let's say we've just put all of these things on our workspace, and that's the way we want it to look, and that's the way we want it to open up studies. So we then go here, we go new workspace layout, we title it, let's say test 1, copy the current layout, and that way if we want to go to a previous layout, another layout, this is one we did for the ASA, which has a big video on it on another screen, and there it is there. But if we want to go back to our test 1, well, we can just go straight back to it, and there it is, all set up there for you. Okay, so let's have a look here also. What else can we show you? Combining sheets, banners, running reports. Let's have a look at the reports. Okay, well, by the way, to separate these two sheets, we just literally pull those two apart. So put them back together again, and we just do what we did before. And then sometimes it's worth cleaning up the banners again. So we're uncluttering our workspace. I'm working with a laptop workspace at the moment, so it tends to cramp everything up, and it looks a bit over cramped. But if you've got a nice big screen, it's going to look much nicer than this. So just keep that in mind. Reports. So I go to reports. Let's say we've done all our scoring, and we want to run a report on this patient. It's literally just reports, and run the report you want to see. I'll find someone that looks interesting here. Let's choose this one. And it just runs the report. Okay, so we can throw all kinds of different things. That little indicator at the top of the recording results page can go in there. We can put all kinds of trend graphs in there. These can be configured in many different ways, and then all kinds of tables. That'll just give us the report that we want. We've left blank spaces here to insert any physician comments. So if we wanted to then go and edit this report, all we do is click the edit button. In the edit mode, we can throw in any additional parameters that we want, and normally we would just search for them. Anything with AHI on it pops up there. You can see I've filtered it, and we can then make insert text here. Whoops, typo. So then any interpretation notes can be thrown in there, and you can just drop fields in there if you want to as well. So to toggle out of edit mode, we literally just hit the edit button again, it reruns the report, and we're back to where we were. Except we should now have our insert text here down there. Any changes you've made are saved, and that'll be saved back into the patient folder. If we wanted to, felt more comfortable, let's say, opening it up in Word and making the adjustments in Word, that's all we do. We open up Word, and then we can go down to our physician notes, and we can type physician notes in here in Word. If you then, or when you then go to exiting that, let's say I just typed in there, we can save it on the way out. I'm not going to save because this is a sample patient, and I've got lots and lots of reports saved for this patient anyway. And that again just goes back into the patient folder. All right. So let's then say we wanted to adjust a report. Adjusting a report is almost as easy. We go down to Manage Reports. We find the report that we want to manage, and let's say we just wanted to, this is one that I played with before. I can double click on it to open it and manage reports, and here it is. It's just a couple of tables thrown in there, and that's all it is. We can then save any table that we want. Let's say we wanted to use a table several different times, and I've got a library of tables. We can save it, and then in report parts, we can see here there are some categories. There's cardiac, notes, periodic limb movements, and let's say I wanted to put that periodic limb movement table, where was it, this one here, ELMs, just throw it in there as a full table, and that's a table that I've saved earlier. So it's already pre-configured, it's ready to go, and I can just build a report very quickly by dumping in anything I want, including all the patient demographics at the top, patient header at the top, physician names, etc. I mean, that's fairly simple. Let's try that, shall we? General. Well, you get the picture. I can't find the one I'm looking for at the moment. Patient. There's notes. There's all kinds of charts and stuff. I think it's just called Tim's charts because I can figure whatever categories that I want as well. We can also put in other charts. There's one that I've created here called, let's say, apnea-hypopnea pie ratio pie chart. There we go. There's that pie chart put in there. Now, if I was to then save that, close it, and run that report, which is just this position one here. There's all the numbers derived from that study, and I've got a pie chart for apnea-hypopnea ratios there. And that's just an example of one of the things that you can do, but there are many, many, many more. Okay, so we've just adjusted that. If we wanted to adjust one of the fields in the report, again, manage reports. Let's find that just position one as well. Let's say we determined that field was either wrong or we wanted to make an adjustment to it somewhat. Let's just double click it, open it up, and we can say, okay, we don't want it in the sleep period. We want it in a slightly different period, sleep onset to wake, and we can choose that, okay. Or if we didn't want it in a prone period, we want it in, let's say, an upright or a supine position, etc. Or in an event category, we can choose a different event category as well. We can add conditions, and we can do a lot of formatting as well. So if you want a different significant figures, etc. This is one of the best, what would you call it, macro builders I've ever come across. It's very, very simple and easy, and all you have to do is have a little think about it, have a look at some of them that have already been produced, and you can start building your own macros very, very easily. Let's just get out of that without running reports, adjusting report fields. We've done all of that. We had a look at that. And we've looked at, I think I've just covered everything on my list. And that's pretty easy. Another couple of other little bits and pieces. We've got a list of all events here. If you've got an event on, so let's say you want to change one event to another, we can do that as well. Or if it's on the wrong channel, we can do that. We can switch all events in one hit over to another channel. Look at analysis periods. You can have as many periods as you want to. You can have as many scorings as you want to. You can see there's a couple of names here of people that have scored this study. Then we can run concordance, and we can do comparisons of the sleep staging and comparisons of the respiratory scorings on a concordance report. And then you've got your signals and data. So if we go over here, signals and data will be populated once we're in a signals and data sheet. You can also do all kinds of different event comparisons, etc. If you want to do, there's lots and lots of different types of sheets. You can have an event grid on the sheets where you can throw in different events and then compare those events, and have a look at the lengths of the events. So there's a lot of granularity in this software that it pays to have a really good look at, and they've really done a very good job. But for now, we just need a quick summary and a quick overview, and I think that pretty much wraps it up. So thank you for listening. I hope it was interesting and informative. Thank you again.